This short video is to show you how I created the playground hex equipment. This is in inch. This was a question from a teacher. So I went into the settings and changed the size of the reference planes because it's much bigger than 5 inches. Made it 60. Just makes it a little easier to see the reference planes when I need them. And so what we did is just start by going with a hex shape, 6-sided hex, locked onto the top plane. And so we set it to 6 sides, and I just made it 24 to start with. Switch to the top plane. So you can see it's 48 inches across the flats, but what I really care about is the length of the flat. So I'm going to unlock the 48 dimension and then add a smart dimension to the length of one of the flats, because that's what I want to drive it with. And we'll make it 30 inches. Alright, now that we have that, we have our 6-sided shape. If you noticed in the picture, it's 3-sided on the bottom. It's a triangle. So we'll just offset this plane. I don't know exactly where this needs to be, so I'm just going to guess with 24 inches. Alright, and then what we're going to do is run the polygon command again and lock to the bottom face. This is going to be a 3-sided. So we'll lock onto that face, go to a top view. And I'm not going to specify a size, I'm just going to pull it out here. And then what I'm going to do is make an equal relationship between the length of the flat on the hex and the length of the flat on the triangle. That shifted my triangle, so let's go ahead and reconnect the center to the coordinate system. And now what I want to know is the length of the line, a line from one vertex to the next, from the hex to the triangle. So I'm just going to do that with a 3D sketch here. So we'll go to 3D sketching. We're going to draw a line from one vertex on the one sketch to the vertex on the other sketch. And then what we want to know is the length of that line, because really what we want it to be is 30, so that it's a square on the side. I can see it's a little bit too short, so let's move that sketch down. Let's see, we'll use the steering wheel, we'll move that sketch down. Let's go down a 1/2 inch. See what that looks like. Hit tab. Okay, it's a little bit too far, so let's bump it back up like 0.005. And that's perfect. It's 30 inches. So now we have 30 inches. We'll have 30 inches on all 4 sides of the rectangle. And so what we're going to use is a loft. And we're just going to loft from the hex shape down to the triangle. And when we click preview, what you're going to see is that of course there are different number of vertices, and so it's not mapping correctly. So what we can do is we can control that. We have vertex mapping. So we're just going to add some more mapping. So instead of going to the midpoint, I want this to go to the end of the triangle. And we'll just go all the way around and we'll map all the vertices from the hex down to the points on the triangle. And then of course we don't need the last one because that was the vertex that it actually mapped correctly. And so we'll go ahead and close that and click finish, and there we have it. So now it's correct. And so we don't need the sketches anymore, so I can actually delete those. You could just hide them, but I actually don't need them, so I'm going to delete them. Same thing with the 3D sketch. Oh, let me delete that. There we go. And then let's go to the 3D sketch, and I don't need that anymore, so I'm going to delete that. Alright, now what we want to do is we want to take that hex shape and we want to mirror it to the top. So I'm going to mirror it rather than create the loft again. I'm just going to mirror it. Now that's not exactly correct because we have a square over top of a square, and from the image it should be a triangle over a square. So what we can do is we can break the association between the top and the bottom and then detach the feature just by right click, detach. That makes it construction geometry, which I can then take that construction geometry and rotate it. Put the steering wheel on the top, holding the shift key down and clicking on the plane reorients the steering wheel. If I hold the shift and click on the origin, that keeps it in that orientation, and I'll put it right on the coordinate system. Now I can rotate that entire top portion, that reference geometry, 60 degrees. So that way I'll end up with a rectangle or a square over top of a triangle, which is exactly what we want. And so then we can just right click and reattach that geometry. And there we go. So now we have a solid. Now we're ready to create the thin wall. In this case I didn't open any faces, so I'll just put 1.5 and click enter, and you'll see in the Pathfinder we have a thin wall. And now it's a matter of creating the cutouts on each face. So I'm just going to lock onto this face with the circle command. They're all going to be on the coordinate system as the center of the part. So I can just use that coordinate system to determine where the center of each circle is. So I'll do a 22 millimeter on the top and the 12 millimeter in the triangle, and then opposite on the other side. Again, I just keep going to the sketch view so I can see looking directly at that face. Control H, and then that's going to be 22. And so that's all we need. We just need 4 of those sketch elements, and then I can just pull those in to create the cuts. So now you can see that thin wall. Perfect. Now I don't need to do that anymore because I can take those 4 cutouts, and what I can do is create a pattern, because there are 3 other instances around that triangle of that pattern. So get all of them in the select set, run the circular pattern command, lock onto the top plane, move it to the coordinate system, and then specify the count as 3. And there we have it. The only thing left to do after that is to add rounding. This is a piece of playground equipment, so we want to make sure it's nice and rounded. So we'll run the round command, and we'll click all rounds, so all outside corners. And if we make that 0.75, that will make it a full round in the openings, because it's 1.5 inches thick. And so then we'll go to all fillets, and we'll go ahead and add a bigger fillet on the inside, maybe 1.5, and that's it.